What happens when two of the Gotei 13's most dangerous captains face off against each other? On one side, we have Shunsui Kyōraku, the current captain commander whose games turn reality into a deadly theatre. On the other hand, we have Yachiru Unohana, the very first Kenpachi, whose blade had once terrorized the Soul Society. Both of them had served under the founder of the Gotei 13, Yamamoto Genryusai, and they both represent very different philosophies of combat. Shunsui weaponizes unpredictability via his elaborate games and his tactical genius, while Unohana embodies centuries of refined bloodlust after having mastered over 8,000 different sword styles in her pursuit for the perfect fight. In this video, I'll be deep diving into the intense battle between Shunsui versus Unohana and determining who would come out on top. The chosen battlefield for this confrontation is going to be a neutral ground within the Soul Society where neither of the opponents has an environmental advantage. There are no interferences from other Shinigami, this is a pure one-on-one fight. We will be comparing both characters at their respective peaks. Shunsui has complete mastery over Katen Kyōkotsu Karamatsu Shinju, and when it comes to Unohana, it will be her appearance as Yachiru Unohana, her true identity as the first Kenpachi. This is the woman who had earned Yamamoto's respect during the era of the original Gotei 13, as she was dubbed as the most diabolical criminal in the Soul Society. So it goes without saying that she will have all of her moveset that she had demonstrated during the 1000-year Blood War arc when she had trained Kenpachi. The win conditions for this fight are straightforward, it's either death or complete incapacitation. There's no way that either of them can retreat or hold back. So while Unohana has incredible healing abilities via her Kaidō, we're going to be examining whether of her healing abilities can withstand Shunsui's reality warping Bankai. Neither of them will have prep time going into this fight, so they will be battling each other with the weapons and abilities that they always carry with them. Now let's examine each of the characters, beginning with Shunsui. He's one of the most iconic captains within the Gotei 13. He trained directly under Yamamoto alongside Ukitake. Shunsui eventually ascends to captain commander position following the devastating first invasion by the Quincy. His laid-back demeanor conceals a ruthless pragmatist who's willing to use any tactic necessary in order to protect the Gotei 13. He explicitly rejects notions of honor when they conflict with victory. During the Fate Karakura Town arc, he had told Love Aikawa that captains don't have time to waste playing the good guy. What distinguishes Shunsui from other captains is his approach to combat. Where others rely on overwhelming spiritual pressure or devastating techniques, Shunsui weaponizes unpredictability itself. His Zanpakuto forces opponents into children's games with lethal consequences, creating situations where traditional combat skills become secondary to understanding the shifting rules of his abilities. This tactical philosophy in combat proves to be effective against opponents ranging from the Primera Espada Stark to godlike Quincy like Lil Barrow who have reality warping abilities. We see some of Shunsui's key feats during his battle against Stark, the first ranking Espada, whose mere existence killed nearby hollows. Shunsui had earned Stark's respect purely from his combat skill alone. Even while deliberately withholding his Bankai, Shunsui matched someone capable of firing Ceros that could level city blocks. Stark himself acknowledged Shunsui as a genuine threat despite the Espada's overwhelming power. When Shunsui activates his Bankai Katen Kyōkotsu Karamatsu Shinju during the final arc against Lil Barrow, the results proved to be devastating. Lil possessed godlike abilities through the Shrift the X-axis, granting the Sternritter with intangibility and with using attacks that simply erased whatever they touched. Yet Shunsui's Bankai managed to decapitate and detonate Lil's head. The fact that Lil Barrow required divine resurrection to survive demonstrates the lethal nature of Shunsui's ultimate ability. What's even more impressive is that Shunsui was able to break through Aizen's defensive barrier using only his Shikai. This places his offensive capability at levels that can threaten transcendent beings. His combat speed is easily faster than light, allowing him to create after images which had fooled Lil's omniscient perception, which Yuobak had bestowed upon him with his power. When Shunsui teamed up with Ukitake to battle Yamamoto in the Soul Society arc, Shunsui survived without any visible injuries despite facing the captain commander commander whose Zanpakuto possesses the most devastating destructive power in the entirety of the Soul Society. This durability feat alone cannot be understated. In terms of signature abilities, his Shikai Katen Kyōkotsu alters reality through children's games. Taka Oni forces opponents to engage at high elevations or suffer amplified damage when struck from above. Kage Oni weaponizes shadows, allowing Shunsui to strike from any shadow that comes into contact with his opponent's shadow while preventing attacks on his own position when he hides in shadows. Iruni creates a game where whoever declares the color first must strike that color on the opponent with damage that varies based on how much of that color exists on the target. Shunsui's most dangerous Shikai ability may well be Daruma-san. It's essentially a lethal version of red light green light. When his opponent moves while Shunsui is watching, they take damage. This creates situations where opponents must remain perfectly still or face serious consequences. Then we have his Bankai Katen Kyōkotsu Karamatsu Shinju, which manifests as a theatrical play which takes place in 4 acts. In Act 1, wounds are shared between Shunsui and his opponent. Whatever damage one receives, the other will suffer equally. In Act 2, black spots will manifest all over the body of Shunsui's opponent, causing them to bleed. In Act 3, both Shunsui and his opponent are trapped within a massive, inescapable body of water. Both of them are forced to remain there until one of them runs out of spiritual pressure and drowns. Act 4 involves Shunsui wrapping a thread around his opponent's throat before detonating their head. Shunsui also possesses mastery over high-level Kido like Haro 78 Zangarin, which fires powerful energy slashes. We now turn our attention towards Unohana Yachiru. Before she was the gentle healer known as Retsu Unohana, she was Yachiru Unohana, the first person to hold the title of Kenpachi. She served as the captain of the 11th Division during the original Gotei 13 era. Her name Yachiru translates to 8,000 styles, which symbolizes the number of sword techniques that she has mastered. She's achieved this through centuries of combat experience in Rukongai. This is where she had no equal amongst the hundreds of criminals which populated those lawless districts. This is until she had encountered a young Kenpachi Zaraki, finding in him the only opponent who could provide the thrill of genuine combat that she was seeking. Following their fight, she maintained a facade as she became the Soul Society's greatest medical expert while secretly waiting for the day that Kenpachi would return to his true strength. When Shunsui in the final arc revealed Unohana's true identity and ordered her to train Kenpachi, Unohana shed all of her pretenses and became the monster Unohana Yachiru that she had always been. Unohana possesses the highest combat attack and spiritual pressure stats amongst all of the captains during the Soul Society arc, according to the official Bleach databook Souls. Kubo himself confirmed through Club Outside Question and Answer 701 that Aizen decided not to fight Unohana because defeating her would have exhausted him. This is the same Aizen who cut down Hitsugaya's Bankai and treated most captains as beneath his concern. The fact that he viewed Unohana as a threat, requiring him to retreat with Gin rather than risk confrontation, speaks volumes about her power level. During her training battle with Kenpachi Zaraki in Muken, Unohana brought Kenpachi to the brink of death multiple times and healed him back up again. She maintained this brutal cycle for extended periods, demonstrating her combat superiority over a fighter who had already defeated multiple Sternritter, and it says a lot about her stamina. The Kenpachi Zaraki that she was battling had already grown significantly stronger than his Arrancar arc self, yet she consistently overpowered him until he finally surpassed her. Her combat speed kept pace with Kenpachi throughout their extended battle. Her precision with hidden daggers allowed her to seamlessly launch concealed blades with deadly accuracy mid-combat. Then you have her ability to deflect Kenpachi's sword swings using the back of her hand or block his strikes with her foot, which demonstrates technical mastery at its highest level. Unohana's Shikai Minazuki transforms her Zanpakuto into a giant green manta ray-like creature capable of flight. While primarily used for transportation, its stomach contains powerful healing acids and ointments that can restore multiple wounded individuals at the same time. This allowed her to maintain her healing facade while keeping her true combat abilities hidden. Then you have her Bankai, which is also called Minazuki, and this reveals her true nature. When it's activated, Unohana Unohana cuts herself, releasing a massive pool of corrosive blood that encompasses the surrounding area. This blood possesses extreme acidic properties, capable of melting away skin, muscle, and tendons, leaving only bones and eyeballs behind. The blood can be launched as slashing attacks from a distance or used defensively as a torrent to deflect incoming strikes. The Bankai's area of effect makes it incredibly difficult to avoid, creating a battlefield that's dominated by corrosive blood that continuously damages anyone that's caught within it. Then you have Unohana's mastery over Kaidō, which surpasses anyone who is currently in the Soul Society. She learned her healing techniques directly from Tenjiro Korinji, who is now a member of the Zero Division. While she originally developed healing skills purely to prolong her fights, she eventually became the foremost medical expert in the Soul Society. Her Kaidō allows her to heal fatal wounds instantaneously, restore lost Reiryoku, and even heal herself mid-combat. This regeneration doesn't extend to complete body parts like severed heads, but it handles virtually everything else. Unohana's Zanjutsu is her greatest strength thanks to her mastery of over 8,000 different sword styles. Her technical skill exceeds even Kenpachi Zoraki's raw instinct. She seamlessly integrates Hakuda into her sword fighting, and her combat intelligence allows her to identify weaknesses in opponents' techniques instantly, adapting her fighting style to exploit any openings that she finds. Unohana's analytical abilities are so refined that she detected inconsistencies in Aizen's elaborate illusion of a corpse doll when no one else did. Now let's examine their abilities. Shunsui's Reiatsu operates as concentrated spiritual pressure that's weaponized into devastating attacks and reality warping games. His Zanpakuto doesn't just involve unleashing raw power, it pretty much restructures the rules of engagement itself. Every ability is going to force the opponent to think multiple steps ahead while adapting to constantly shifting conditions. Unohana's Reiatsu manifests as an overwhelming presence that's backed up by her technical ability. Her spiritual pressure doesn't need gimmicks because it's supported by over 1,000 years of combat experience. Shunsui creates complicated scenarios which require specific responses. On the other hand, Unohana applies relentless pressure through superior swordsmanship and corrosive blood that forces opponents into defensive positions. Shunsui's moveset includes multiple types of Sero-level energy attacks, Kido mastery, his various Shikai games, and his 4-act Bankai. His strength lies in unpredictability. Opponents rarely know which game that he'll employ or how his abilities will manifest until they are already caught up in them. And then his Bankai in particular creates a theatrical experience that opponents cannot escape once it's begun. Unohana's moveset appears to be more focused but equally deadly. Her Bankai creates a corrosive battlefield that continuously damages opponents while she presses them with superior swordsmanship. Her Kaidō allows her to heal through damage that would incapacitate most fighters, effectively giving her multiple lives in extended combat. Her mastery over all of those different sword styles means that she should be able to adapt to any opponent's techniques, finding counters through sheer experience. And then her hidden daggers add an element of surprise to her otherwise straightforward approach. When looking at their physical combat abilities, Shunsui possesses impressive physical power. His strikes during his battle with Stark carried enough force to clash with the #1 ranking Espada. He was able to crack through Aizen's defensive barrier with a single strike. His Kido attacks can level buildings, and when he uses his Bankai, the ambient spiritual pressure creates a tangible weight in the atmosphere. Then you have Unohana's physical strength, which operates on another tier entirely. She physically overpowered Kenpachi Zoraki repeatedly during their battle in Muken. Her strikes weren't just strong, they were precise enough to kill him dozens of times while maintaining perfect control. Unohana pinned Zoraki to a wall with one hand while lecturing him about his weakness. Then we're looking at their speed. Shunsui's speed feats are remarkable. He kept up pace with Stark's Sero barrages and demonstrated faster than light combat speed against Lil Barrow. His Daruma-san technique allows him to create speed blitzing illusions by traveling along Reiatsu trajectories, surprising opponents opponents that are equal to his base speed. Unohana's speed also matches Shunsui's levels, confirmed by Aizen's fears that she would give him an exhausting fight, and her sustained exchanges with an escalatingly powerful Kenpachi Zaraki. What separates her is her technical precision. Her 8,000 different sword styles means that she's seen every angle, every feint, every possible attack trajectory. Her speed isn't just about raw velocity, but optimal efficiency in movement. You can expect that Unohana would waste zero motion in combat. In terms of technique, this category may be Shunsui's weakest area relative to Unohana's greatest strength. Shunsui is undeniably skilled. He trained directly under Yamamoto, his swordsmanship earned him respect from opponents like Stark, and he's capable of dual-wielding Zanpakuto with perfect synchronization. And he can seamlessly switch dominant hands mid-combat to confuse his opponents. Unohana, on the other hand, represents the peak of Zanjutsu mastery in Bleach. She's virtually mastered every sword technique in existence. Her skill isn't just superior, it's categorically different. Watching her fight with Zaraki in the anime shows how every deflection flows into a counterattack, every parry positions her for the killing blow. Shunsui is excellent, but Unohana is truly transcendent here. In terms of intelligence and strategy, Shunsui's battlefield intelligence operates on different layers. He constantly analyzes opponents, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Against Stark, he deliberately forced the Espada into situations which would limit his advantages. When fighting Lil, despite the X-axis offering no counterplay, Shunsui identified that Lil's confidence in his intangibility created predictable behavior patterns that could be exploited through his Bankai. Shunsui's combat philosophy rejects honor for effectiveness. He's willing to attack from behind, use feints, or exploit any psychological weaknesses. Unohana's tactical intelligence manifests differently. She doesn't rely on tricks or misdirection. Her approach involves reading opponents with near perfect accuracy and responding with techniques specifically designed to counter their strengths. When she fought Kenpachi, she recognized his habit of fighting with one hand, which limited his options, so she targeted that weakness repeatedly. When he adapted, she seamlessly shifted her strategy. Her years of experience as a healer give her a deep understanding of anatomy, physiology, and how damage affects combat effectiveness. This knowledge informs her tactical decisions. She knows exactly where to strike for maximum effect, how much damage will incapacitate versus kill, and how to maintain pressure without overextending herself. In terms of adaptability, Shunsui can adapt thanks to his varied toolkit. If one game's not working, he can switch to another. If his Shikai proves to be inefficient, then he can escalate to Bankai. The weakness in this approach appears during his fight with Lil. Once Lil evolved beyond the point where even Shunsui's Bankai could kill him, Shunsui ran out of options. He doesn't demonstrate the ability to improvise entirely new techniques mid-battle. His adaptability operates within the constraints of his existing abilities. Then you have Unohana's adaptability, which stems from her different sword styles that she's mastered, as she can switch between completely different fighting approaches based on what the situation demands. Unohana can counter almost any fighting style through sheer experience alone. Now let's look at their durability and stamina. Shunsui tanked blows from Stark's resurrection and survived a brief exchange with Yamamoto, sustaining only moderate injuries from the most destructively powerful Zanpakuto in existence. Later against Lil, he endured multiple X-axis shots which appear to be fired through his torso, but yet he continued fighting effectively. His durability is exceptional by Captain standards. Unohana's durability matches this level, as she withstood countless strikes from an increasingly powerful Kenpachi Zaraki over a long period of time of continuous battle against him. More importantly, her Bankai's regenerative properties effectively multiply her durability. Damage that would incapacitate others simply heals within seconds. Her durability isn't about tanking hits, it's about making damage irrelevant to her. The official stats even place Unohana's durability amongst the highest of all of the captains. In terms of stamina, Shunsui demonstrated impressive stamina when he fought Stark alongside multiple interruptions. During the final arc, he also fought in extended combat against Lil despite having serious injuries. He maintained enough spiritual energy to activate and complete his Bankai's full sequence. His spiritual energy reserves appear virtually limitless under normal circumstances. He doesn't show signs of exhaustion even after using high-level techniques repeatedly. The only limitation seems to be physical injury injuries rather than energy depletion. Unohana's stamina is legendary. Remember, she fought Kenpachi continuously for over 3 days and 3 nights, killing and reviving him hundreds of times while maintaining her own combat effectiveness. She never slowed or faltered, and she never showed fatigue. Even at the end, when Kenpachi finally surpassed her, she remained composed enough to speak and acknowledge his victory. This level of stamina exceeds anything that Shunsui has really demonstrated. Now let's examine their ultimate abilities. Shunsui's ultimate ability is his Bankai, which represents one of Bleach's most conceptually powerful Bankai. It doesn't rely on raw strength, it imposes a narrative structure that kills through inevitability. Act 1 prevents death from shared wounds, establishing the tragedy's opening. Act 2 inflicts persistent bleeding that weakens his opponent. Act 3 creates an inescapable ocean that drains Reiatsu until someone runs dry. Act 4 severs and detonates his opponent's head. This worked on Lil Barrow, whose intangible light form should have theoretically been immune to physical damage. The area of effect of Shunsui's Bankai is huge, thus making collateral damage a concern. Then there's Unohana's Bankai, which is her respective ultimate ability. This floods the battlefield with corrosive blood that melts flesh on contact. At the same time, this blood provides instantaneous regeneration for Unohana herself. She can launch ranged slashing waves, create defensive blood spheres, and maintain a constant offense while regenerating from any damage. Her Bankai amplified her physical capabilities to the point where she could initially overpower Kenpachi even after he had grown strong enough to match her base form. The weakness of Shunsui's Bankai is that it affects everyone in range, including allies. So he needs to make sure that he has enough distance between himself and anyone else before he can activate his Bankai. The other issue is that Shunsui is also bound by the rules of his own Bankai. During Act 1, any wound that he takes appears on his opponent as well, but this also means he's vulnerable to being killed if his opponent can somehow survive injuries that would kill him. Act 3 drains his Reiatsu just as it drains his opponent's, and if he runs out first, he dies. The Bankai requires Shunsui to progress through all of the 4 acts sequentially, and he is unable to skip to the Act 4's instant kill. If an opponent can survive the earlier acts and drain his Reiatsu, they effectively win against him. In terms of Unohana's Bankai, it generally just makes her difficult to kill, but it doesn't grant true immortality. Her Bankai lacks the conceptual hacks of Shunsui's. It operates through physical damage rather than reality warping. This means sufficient power or appropriate counters are able to overcome it. Zaraki eventually powered through it by becoming stronger than her Bankai could handle, so an opponent with extreme durability or healing comparable to her own could potentially withstand the corrosive blood long enough to find an opening to take out Unohana. Let's have a look at the clash potential. If Shunsui activates his Bankai first, Unohana becomes trapped in the theatrical play. Act 1, they share wounds between them, but Unohana's Kaidō allows her to heal the shared damage, potentially creating a situation where she heals while Shunsui suffers the wounds. However, Act 1 might prevent healing since the wounds are shared conceptually rather than just physically inflicted. Act 2's incurable disease represents a more serious threat for Unohana. If the wounds cannot be healed by any means, then Unohana's greatest defensive tool becomes useless. The question becomes whether if incurable means Kaidō specifically cannot heal them, or if the conceptual nature of the wounds bypasses all healing entirely. Act 3's despair-inducing water poses the biggest threat to Unohana. She spent centuries fighting the most dangerous opponents in the Soul Society. Her combat experience should provide substantial mental fortitude, but the water doesn't just create psychological pressure, it freezes resolve on a conceptual level. If Unohana can survive up until Act 4, her durability becomes relevant again. The thread wraps around her throat and detonates her head. Her Kaidō can heal fatal wounds, but can it regenerate a completely destroyed head? Based on her limitations, probably not. Regenerating destroyed organs or severed body parts seems beyond her capabilities, and we haven't seen this type of healing demonstrated outside of Orihime's Fullbring abilities. Now, if Unohana activates her Bankai first, beating Shunsui to it should flood the battlefield with corrosive blood while pressing Shunsui with superior swordsmanship. The question becomes whether if Shunsui can activate his Bankai before he is overwhelmed by Unohana's corrosive damage and her technical superiority. superiority. Activating Bankai requires concentration and time. Being pressed by one of the greatest sword wielders in history while corrosive blood melts your body creates difficult conditions for Bankai activation. What's the wildcard or X factor in this matchup that could turn the tide of battle in either side? Shunsui's X factor is Katen Kyōkotsu herself. His Zanpakuto spirit has her own personality and moods. If Katen decides she's not in the mood to play, Shunsui's Bankai may not operate at full capacity. However, against a threat like Unohana, Katen would likely recognize the necessity. Additionally, Shunsui's laid-back demeanor conceals absolute ruthlessness when it's required. Unohana's psychological warfare represents an underestimated factor in this matchup. She spent centuries suppressing her true nature, maintaining perfect composure as a healer while hiding the bloodthirsty monster that lays underneath. This level of self-control suggests that she could potentially resist or manipulate the psychological aspects of the games that Shunsui brings into reality. Unohana's understanding of pain, suffering, and death comes from both perspectives. She's someone who can inflict it and someone who heals it. The dual nature might provide a unique resistance to the despair of Act 3. She is intimately familiar with the boundary between life and death. Would the conceptual despair of the third act of Shunsui's Bankai affect someone who has embraced death as a part of their identity? Another wildcard involves the activation speed of both of their Bankai. Shunsui needs to speak the release command and allow the theatrical setting to manifest. Unohana simply cuts herself to release the blood. Her activation appears faster and more direct. In a battle between two captain-level fighters, those precious seconds could determine everything. The most significant unknown here involves whether if Unohana would even allow Shunsui to activate his Bankai. Her combat philosophy involves overwhelming opponents through technical superiority before they can mount effective counterattacks. Then there's the question of mutual respect and understanding that these two captains would have. They both served under head captain Yamamoto. Shunsui acknowledges Unohana's terrifying nature when her identity was revealed, and this prior knowledge means that he would enter the fight understanding exactly how dangerous she is, potentially making him more cautious or even desperate. Now let's determine a winner once and for all. Let's break down each of the categories. In terms of physical combat, I think strength favors neither fighter significantly. Both of them possess enough power to threaten each other. Speed operates at comparable levels, with both demonstrating faster-than-light combat capabilities. Technique, however, favors Unohana overwhelmingly. Her mastery of 8,000 sword styles surpasses Shunsui's considerable but more limited expertise. And we know that Unohana has hundreds of years of more experience than Shunsui. When she was recruited into the original Gotei 13, she had already been dubbed as the most diabolical criminal in the Soul Society, and during this time Shunsui was only a child. This is proven to be the case when we see that flashback of 1,000 years ago when Shunsui sees that portrait of Yamamoto covered in flames. This was after the events of the original Quincy invasion, where the original Gotei 13 defeated Yhwach and his army. So in terms of pure physical combat, Unohana takes it. In terms of intelligence and strategy, Shunsui uses unpredictable games that confuses opponents. Unohana reads opponents with near-perfect accuracy and adapts through her vast experience. They both think tactically, but their approaches are very different. Adaptability favors Unohana due to her broader repertoire of techniques. Experience slightly favors Unohana too, given her longer combat history and more violent formative years. So again, intelligence and strategy, I'd have to give it to Unohana. Durability operates at similar levels for both of them, though Unohana's instant healing effectively multiplies her survivability. Stamina clearly favors Unohana, whose energy reserves allowed her to kill and heal Kenpachi countless times without exhaustion. So again, durability and stamina is Unohana's victory. When it comes to ultimate abilities, this is the category that is going to determine the entire matchup, with Shunsui's Bankai operating on a conceptual level which doesn't rely on raw power, while Unohana's Bankai enhances her already formidable abilities through corrosive blood and physical amplification. Now, the advantage or the winner in this category is going to be dependent upon the situation. The main question is Shunsui able to activate his Bankai before Unohana can overwhelm him with her superior technique and corrosive blood and instant healing? If Shunsui activates his Katen Kyōkotsu Karamatsu Shinju, the play would begin. Unohana would need to survive all 4 acts. Act 1, Shared Wounds, becomes problematic if her Kaidō cannot heal conceptually shared damage. Act 2's incurable disease explicitly counters her healing advantage. Act 3's conceptual despair may overcome even her mental fortitude. Act 4's head detonation likely exceeds her regenerative capabilities. However, Unohana possesses multiple paths to victory before Shunsui reaches for his Bankai. Her mastery of swordsmanship means that she controls the pace of close combat. Her Bankai's corrosive blood creates continuous damage that Shunsui cannot heal from. Her tactical intelligence might allow her to recognize his Bankai's threat and to completely prevent its activation through aggressive assault. Her instant healing allows her to trade damage favorably, recovering from wounds that would slow Shunsui down. The matchup analysis suggests that Unohana holds advantages in most individual categories. And then don't forget, her Bankai activates faster and it doesn't require any theatrical setup. Shunsui is only going to win if he uses his Bankai and survives long enough for its effects to kill Unohana. It isn't impossible. His tactical genius and his willingness to use any method to win means he would recognize the urgency of activating his Bankai soon. His durability against Yamamoto and Lil proves that he can endure severe punishment while executing his plans. A combination of all of the reasons that I've discussed within this video, I think Unohana wins this fight in most scenarios. Shunsui does have a win condition via his Bankai, but the path to that win condition requires him to run through one of the Soul Society's most dangerous warriors who is operating at peak aggression with every advantage in direct combat. The scenarios where Shunsui activates his Bankai and completes it before Unohana kills him do exist, and I think for this reason Shunsui wins 35% of the encounters and Unohana wins 65% of them. Now my conclusion is in stark contrast to the community poll that I've run on my channel. So I asked who would win in a 1 versus 1 fight. 29,000 of you had voted, with 61% believing that Shunsui would win and 39% believing that Unohana would win. I do respect all of your opinions on this matchup, but we are differing on the conclusion of this fight. I'm not sure if people were voting here out of a popularity contest, but I'd love to know all of your thoughts as to why Shunsui wins this fight against Unohana. Based upon all of the demonstrated feats that we have seen within the series, and all of the reasons that I've discussed within this video, I see Unohana taking it in most scenarios. We have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about Shunsui versus Unohana? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. If you agree or disagree with me, let me know. I look forward to reading all of your comments, especially the arguments for Shunsui winning. Lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.